Hello, and welcome to our walkthrough on preparing and submitting datasets to a data repository. So proper preparation of datasets is very important for storing your data in a repository, and it's going to help ensure that your work is accessible and reusable and complies with all the requirements of the repository and privacy and sharing and legal requirements. So as an example, we will be using this National Heart, Lung, and Blood Institute NHLBI data repository. This guideline does a great job of going step by step through dataset preparation and showing all the different requirements. So it'll serve as a good example for any other repository which will have the same requirements but may not have as well documented a step-by-step process. So step one in this guideline is to understand your responsibilities. So usually these responsibilities center around your funding requirements and any ethical or legal obligations or requirements that you have, such as data sharing agreements or agreements with participants of what can be shared. So in this example, we want to make sure that the data has followed these specific requirements, such as participant privacy and informed consent. Next is determination of the types of data to include. So in any data set you're submitting to a repository, it's important to include all the relevant data that should go in the data set. And in this case, since this repository is dealing with specific types of data, clinical trials and observational epidemiology, they list out the different data types that are required for these kind of studies to be complete. Now, in a more general context, in another repository, you might have to think about, for your particular data set, has all the data that would be required to support the examination of your research questions and help future researchers to understand your findings. Has that all been included in the data set? So you should think carefully about that during this step, and then also include that your data includes the necessary documentation and metadata as we discussed in other sections of the course. Step 3 in this guideline is to redact the data sets to protect participant privacy. And this is important regardless of the repository, regardless of the study. Of course, the details may vary depending on the type of study you've concluded. In this NHLBI example, since it's a lot of clinical information, there is a requirement for redaction, and there's a step-by-step process to remove identifiers, remove dates, administrative, center-related variables, and it's a great step-by-step guide in this guideline, which may be worth taking a look at even in other situations. Step 4 is the study documentation, and of course, comprehensive and clear study documentation is necessary for any dataset submission. And in this example, it lists specifically data collection forms, study procedures, protocols, data dictionaries, algorithms, and so it's a great list in this case, and it's worth keeping in mind as a general guideline. And we cover some of this in other sections of the course, such as Module 2.3. And finally, there's a section on how to format, store, and deliver study data. And this is an essential aspect of the submission to a data repository, obviously, because this is kind of the technical side. And so in this case, NHLBI lists the preferred data formats such as SAS or SPSS, MS Word, PDF formats, and of course each repository is going to be have specific requirements Each repository has its own capabilities for the data types that it can store and present. And so this is another step that's important to think about to submit your data according to the specified procedures. So this has just been one example of walking through the guidelines for submitting to a repository. Hopefully it gives you a sense of what you'll need to do, kind of a 5-step process. But the most important thing is to look at each individual repository and hopefully find their documentation as well. Thank you.